You don't visit friends without bringing a gift, and on Joe Biden's first overseas visit as president, he's packing $500 million of them.
The U.S. is donating 500 million doses of Pfizer shot to 92 countries.
The announcement to the G7 expected in just a few hours, with 200 million doses planned for this year and another 300 in early 2022.
We have to end COVID-19 not just at home, which we're doing, but everywhere. There's no wall high enough to keep us safe from this pandemic or the next biological threat we face, and there will be others.
I think it's great. The announcement just before the G7 Plus meeting means that there's the possibility that some of the other wealthy countries in the world might also make similar pledges. So it could have a very important ripple effect.
It's not just altruism. The US has fallen behind geopolitical rivals Russia and China, who've been rolling out vaccines to needy nations and shoring up goodwill along the way.
They've tended to target the same countries that China has targeted for other diplomatic and strategic and economic purposes, not where the crisis is the largest.
Our PM's also heading to the G7 and has been highlighting Australia's role in the global effort.
Each month, Australia is delivering tens of thousands of vaccines to the Pacific and Timor-Leste families to respond to serious COVID-19 outbreaks.
The US has fully vaccinated around 50% of their population, whereas we're at about 2%. But we do have a lot of AstraZeneca because we manufacture almost 1 million doses a week. We could start ramping up donations to our neighbouring countries.
So with the WHO estimating the world needs 11 billion doses to properly quash the pandemic, should we be doing more?
Well, among the many hats she wears, Jane Holton is co-chair of COVAX, the WHO initiative to bring vaccinations to the world, and she joins us now. Jane, Joe Biden started out his presidency by buying up double what the US actually needed, and he's only now sharing it with other nations. As generous as this gesture appears to be, shouldn't he have freed those up earlier in the first place?
Well, look, I think a number of countries have bought more doses than their actual population needed because they weren't sure which vaccines were going to work. So I understand why they've done it. I'm very, very grateful that we're now going to get vaccines from a number of these developed countries to be provided to people right around the world who need them.
Jane, the WHO says 11 billion vaccines are needed to get COVID under control. What do you think? Can we get there?
Yes, we can. It's going to take a lot of things. We've got to focus on manufacturing, we've got to focus on delivery, and we've got to focus on equity. So far, 77% of all the vaccines administered have gone into the arms of people in 10 countries. Now, that's got to change. And so that 11 billion, think about it, there's 8 billion people in the world. As a minimum, we want 6 billion people vaccinated. So that is about another 11 billion doses. But what we've got to do is not just produce it, we've got to ship it, and then we've got to administer it. So the WHO is right, that's our challenge. Our objective is to get to 30% of the people in low to middle income countries, basically by early in 2022. But it's going to be a bit of a tough road. I'm confident we can do it, though.
So, Jane, it's probably worth spelling out the problem here, because if we don't do that, if vaccination hasn't taken place right around the world, then the fear is, at least, that we will eventually get a variant of this that our vaccines that we have taken won't protect us against. Like the virus will find a way around because of the variants will happen. How long do you reckon we have before a variant like that shows up?
Well, of course, no one knows the answer to that question, Waleed, and we've talked before about my concern that everyone understands, while anyone out there still got it, we've all got it, and it's precisely for these reasons. We know that wherever we can't trade or travel, we're affected, but we're also affected if we end up with a variant that then our vaccines aren't effective against. The best way we can deal with that is to get as many people vaccinated as we can. We're already seeing these variants. People are now talking about the Delta variant, which of course we've had that outbreak of around Australia. It's much more infectious than previous versions. We don't really know whether it's more dangerous in terms of health outcomes. The good news is both AstraZeneca and Pfizer give you protection. 2 doses of both vaccines will give you protection. So you're right, variants really worry us, and in the vaccine world we're scrambling to make sure that our vaccines can keep up with, or as we keep saying, get in front of this virus. But that's why vaccination's so important.
What do you think of the risk itself? Do you think it's only a matter of time?
Absolutely. I mean, we certainly think that this virus will continue to evolve. That's what viruses do, and that's, of course, why successful viruses like this Delta variant will push out other less successful variants. And we know that viruses will get better at being more infectious and potentially more lethal. So there's no doubt this virus is going to keep changing, and not in a way that's necessarily for the better.
Sounds like we've got to be smarter than the virus. Jane, as always, thanks so much for speaking with us.
My pleasure.